Yeah, boy.
It's my first time you ever let me hit the button.
Yeah, boy. It's all right. You didn't have to creep in.
Yeah, usually I just steal it.
That's right. Hey, what's up going on? This is the Connect podcast, and I'm sitting here with Pastor Matt Manning, and we have a really fun show today. We've been watching a lot of Disney Plus, as many of you I'm sure are out there, and so, we had WandaVision, there is The Winter Soldier, and the other guy, what was that called?
Falcon. Oh, wait,
the Falcon
Winter
and the
Soldier.
Winter Soldier.
No. Winter Soldier and Cap. What
Wasn't it Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
You're right.
You're right. Yeah,
That's what it was.
And but also one of the most recently ones that we saw is Loki.
Yeah. So if you haven't watched it today, we're gonna ruin it.
That's right. We're gonna ruin it for you today. But so pause right now. Pause. If you're listening and you haven't seen it, pause. Steal your mom's Disney Plus code and go watch Loki if you haven't seen it yet. But we're gonna get into that. Do you have? How do you select a show that you, like? When you're watching shows, is that something you do with Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my family.
Your family?
Yeah.
Do you guys watch shows on your own, or is it always as a family?
Typically, always as a family.
Okay.
Yeah. We.
Well, your kids are old enough now that you can watch stuff together.
Yeah. So we. We spend time watching shows typically together. There's not a lot of shows that
Daniel
we watch.
Tiger.
Yeah. We don't do a lot of Daniel Tiger in my house.
What is the show
anymore.
that you hated?
Oh, The Wiggles.
The Wiggles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could still sing all the songs. Yeah, it was awful. But yeah,
we'll save that for next time.
We typically watch shows together as a family. There's not too many shows that we watch on our own, although I'm a huge Justified fan.
Okay.
And so I do watch Justified on my day off. That's part of my day off routine is to watch an episode of Justified.
Gotcha. And because that season, it's over, right?
Oh, yeah,
so
it's been over. Yeah, so this is
you're
like a
re-looping.
rewatch for me.
Yeah. Got it. So Christiana and I mean, we watch stuff with our kids too, especially the Marvel stuff. We've been watching it with them, and it's kind of funny because even if they say like, oh my G-O-D, you know, especially Enoch is like, he said a bad word. And we're like, that's right. People are going to say those words. We just have to choose not to say those words, you know?
Right.
So it's kind of teaching moments, and I don't know if we're corrupting their brains too early or not, but we're watching them together anyway.
Yeah, we do that. We do that as well. And so like on the rotation right now is the Marvel Disney Plus things. Mandalorian.
Yes.
That's big. The Chosen.
Yes.
Where we've got into The Chosen and we started watching that. So my middle son, Cademan, really loves The Chosen.
Yeah.
And
we've really liked it too. We showed our kids just the kid one.
Yeah.
The one where he brings all the kids in and they play, and we thought they would really like that one.
It was a lot of fun. That was like the third episode of first
Something
season.
like that,
I think. And then those are basically the TV that we watch outside of, sports.
Mm-hmm.
If Dad's interested in a sport.
Do you have your
to watch.
go-to? Like I think I've seen the meme that says my night is scrolling through Netflix and then watching The Office.
Nice.
like I'm gonna look. We'll just watch The Office.
Yeah. No, we we don't watch a lot of TV outside of like I don't know, I guess I'm old school.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's appointment TV, and so when WandaVision came out, that was every Friday we were going to watch it.
Appointment TV.
Yeah, because
that's good.
If we didn't watch
Did
it on
you coin
Friday,
that?
No, that's like an old term.
Okay.
That's an old term.
Appointment TV.
Yeah, so you would make an appointment to watch it, and that's
Yes.
only when you could only watch something at 7 p.m. or whatever. You had to make an appointment.
That was
for
before TiVo.
That was before TiVo. Yeah, and now Disney is Plus and Netflix to a degree is trying to bring us back to that, and they're doing a brilliant job because if I didn't watch WandaVision on Friday, you or Tim would ruin it for me.
That's probably true.
On Saturday, so it was like that was the unspoken rule among us.
As soon as it's over, we text you how it ended.
Yeah, particularly on Saturday, and so like there was till Saturday to watch it. Otherwise, it was you weren't gonna get it.
Yeah, that's good. We put stuff in our queue too. We like movies too. You like movies as well. And sometimes Christiana and I, like once we can get everybody to bed, it's nice to watch something on our own where it's just us. But we like to watch stuff with the kids as well. So it's nice that they're old enough that we can watch things. That's kind of what we say. It's you guys can pick, but you have to pick something that doesn't annoy me.
Yes.
That's the rule.
Yeah, Sarah and I used to do that, like put the kids to bed and watch a movie. But now my kids are, teens.
Yeah.
And so they stay up all the time. So there is no, hey, Mom and Dad, let's go watch a movie.
Right.
It's,
Yeah. Everyone goes to bed kind of at the same time. We actually watched a really fun movie last night called Instant Family. Have you seen that?
Yes.
with Marky Mark.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's the one where they adopt.
Yeah, they foster.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Every person in the history of the world should watch that
Yes,
movie. It
absolutely.
is such a beautiful picture of adoption and foster care and all that.
Oh man. So we've plunged in to foster care.
Yeah.
And so we have these 3 kids, and it's like we've seen the movie in the past.
Yeah.
And we're going through these things, and I keep getting like these visions of the movie because we're actually living it out. And it's so accurate, it's scary.
Yeah.
And we even had, like, there's this one scene where they're sitting together in the bedroom and they're talking about, man, this is crazy. Remember what our life was like before and how calm it was? And they're like talking about what it would be like to not have these kids anymore. But then they come to the conclusion of, well, we can't do that. That's never going to happen. Like we're in this now, you know? And so certainly we've had those kind of come to Jesus moments of, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Are we, are we supposed to be doing this? But then we're like, we have to, man. These kids need it, and they need us, and we probably need them a little bit too.
Yeah.
So it's good. Anyway, that was a total rabbit trail.
Oh man, but that's worth going down.
That's worth going down. Yeah.
It's worth watching.
Yeah. So watch that. So I know that you and I both recently watched Loki.
Yes, it was amazing.
Yes, I loved it. There's only one episode that I hated, but then in the end, I realized why it needed to happen. And it was super short too. How many was it? 6?
6, yeah.
Like, that's crazy to me that they only had 6 episodes.
Yeah.
But hey, they get to do what they want to do.
That's right.
So
they keep winning.
They keep winning, yeah. So you've obviously watched the whole thing.
I have.
I've watched the whole thing. What were some of your highlights of things that you liked, and what were some of the things that you were like, that's stupid, I don't like it at all?
Yeah, I think part of what this podcast is all about today with Loki is one of the things that I really liked is they dealt with time from a faith point of view.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to jump into that, but that was such an attractive thing for me. Anytime that...
Do you think they did that on purpose?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I actually, after the first episode, I looked at my wife and I said, they have a theologian on staff.
Yeah.
Like they got it too close to Christian belief.
Yeah.
In some of these issues, not to have someone who they were referencing in that space. Yeah. And so anytime a TV show treats faith well,
yeah,
or at least interestingly, like that's a hook for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that was a big part of Loki. I really, it was so intriguing the way that they handled time in that space. And
I love anything about time.
Yeah.
Like Interstellar. Sorry,
That was really
I didn't
great.
mean to cut you off, but I loved Interstellar because it totally ruined Star Wars for me.
Okay.
Because he's traveling, right?
Yeah.
And they're traveling, like if you go at the speed of light, that means you're traveling at a different rate of time.
Yep.
So by the time they get to the Death Star, it's already gone.
There you go.
Because of time, right?
Yeah,
Is that right? Am I
Well,
reading into that right?
In Interstellar's rules, yeah. That's the
Yeah.
thing with time movies, right? Is that everyone has their own set of rules. And
Yeah.
will they...
But that's based off of Einstein
yeah.
and his relative time, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how time moves differently. And yeah.
Which I totally get that.
Yeah.
Do you
Makes
understand
sense.
it?
I get it. I've never experienced it to know if it's true or
Right,
not.
because
but-
we can't go fast enough.
Right.
But it makes sense to me. If time is relevant to how fast light is traveling, then time would change.
Yeah.
I don't know.
One of the other things
Man. We are all over the place.
we are.
It's cool.
Bringing us back. One
Yes.
of the things I really
So
loved
Loki.
about Loki, is that there was, in all the movies, and I've been a big Marvel fan, is there was this character arc of Loki where he becomes a genuine, I wouldn't call him a hero, but
Part of the group.
a genuine, he wasn't even a good guy. I don't know how to describe
Yeah.
it. Like there was redeeming qualities to
go.
Loki. By the end, he was redeemable, is the way that I would
Yeah.
say it. And so it was interesting because the TV show Loki begins with him still being bad, and none of that character arc had happened that makes him redeemable.
Right.
And over the course of the 6 episodes, Loki went down the same path and became redeemable again in the end. And so that was a super cool thing. I also liked him learning to love himself, but they did it so weird. I don't know how to categorize that in my mind.
Yeah,
where he
that's
falls
really
in love
weird.
with himself.
Yeah.
But the analogy there of where he finally accepts himself and the great line at
That
the
was
very-
always that was confusing to me. Like,
Yeah.
you can have the essence of Loki, but in a different body.
Yeah.
That seemed weird to me.
There was a lot of different, because
Yeah.
it's the multiverse, man.
But I realized, so in my idea of the multiverse, right, if it's me, I have opportunities to make choice, right?
Yes.
So I can choose to be here, or I could choose to stay home today. But I chose to be here, and so in our world, in our timeline, here I am. But if I would have made a different choice, I would still be at home. And so that's the multiverse in my mind, but it's still me. It's just me making different choices. It's not me in a different bodily form.
True. But then all those choices that
Other people,
other people make, right? Like this is Back to the Future. What if mom and dad make a divergent choice where they don't marry each other but marry somebody else? Does Jared exist?
Right. And absolutely. And that was my other thought too, is so down the timeline, the people aren't even the same anymore.
Yeah.
In different timelines.
Exactly.
So that's why you have
essence.
different bodies. Okay, I get
that's
it.
where you have the essence. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I just
honest,
argued myself out of my own argument.
And to be honest, multiverse, like it gets so complicated so fast. Like that's usually where I check out of things.
That's why they'd use the 80s technology just to show the little lines going off.
To help us idiots figure this out.
Right.
Yeah. So when multiverse starts to happen in anything, it's like I'm out. I don't get it anymore. So I'm trying to hang on because I love Marvel, but we'll see what happens.
This I always thought about like possible worlds. And when I was taking philosophy in college, I always thought that was really cool. And you're right, like Loki plays into this because I had this thought in college, that God knows all possible worlds. Like he knows what choices I'm gonna make before I make them, and he probably knows, hey, if you. And the convolutedness of everybody making choice, right? He knows all possible worlds, and somehow it's all coming to the same head.
Yeah.
Which Loki calls the void.
Yeah. And that was part of Loki that really is so interesting that we're talking about today, right? Is all of the theological pieces of Loki that made it in that really we have to wrestle with in our own space. And so like one of those things that was so apparent from the very beginning was like the total depravity picture. And total depravity, for those who don't know, is that we're all sinners. We're all going to choose sin. Like that's just who we are. And Morpheus, right? That's his name, Morpheus.
From Matrix?
No, not what was his no, in Loki, what's the guy's name? Owen Wilson's character.
Oh man, I can't think of it. It was a different name. I don't think
it wasn't.
It wasn't.
Started with an M.
It wasn't Morpheus.
Here, whatever it is.
You keep talking. I'm gonna find out.
That up. Anyways, they're having the conversation, right? And like, there's this moment where Loki realizes that like he's always gonna be bad. Like there's always gonna be
Mobius.
Mobius. I was so close.
Yeah. I'm like Morpheus.
Yeah, Mobius. I was really close.
You were close.
That there was so much, that he was depraved. Like that's what he was.
It was his character that was always going to happen.
Yeah, and you saw that like sink into his space of like, man, I am totally depraved in that space, and I just thought it was a beautiful picture of I don't think what we ultimately see. Like if we were able to see out our whole life, right, played out before us, like certainly there would be the good, but I think that the bad would stick to us. All those sinful moments in our life, and we would look back and there would be no argument of whether like, hey, we're all good people. It would be like, no, look at the decisions that you've made over and over again in your life.
The human depravity.
Yeah, the human depravity of your life. And when that scene, it's in the first episode where he sees that, and just the way that they depicted the emotion of that space was just, it was amazing.
It was good. So the one episode that I didn't like was episode 3, I think, and that's when he follows the other Loki. What's her name?
Sophie.
So he follows her, and they go into like the future.
Yeah.
And to a time when like a world or a planet is being destroyed. I just thought
that was the end of the world.
It was the end of.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, it was the end of Earth?
The end of world. Yeah.
Okay. So I couldn't tell if it was Earth or if they somehow went to a different planet or what was going on. But when I watched that episode, like the whole thing went down, and I'm like, that was a terrible episode. I thought it was really boring, and I didn't think a lot of stuff happened, and they were just kind of, I don't know. But then I understand the need for it. I just felt like that particular episode was lacking. For me. And then I also didn't like that one of the essences of Loki was a crocodile. I'm like, that's so stupid. Like, I can understand Sophie and the other guys, but come on.
The crocodile.
Why?
I think that was them playing on their comic book spaces, right? Like comic books, you have to suspend some belief, and there's some campiness in comic books.
Yeah.
And I think, because you had like Joker, Loki show up in that, the president, and then you had you had all these different versions of Loki.
And I get like Guardians of the Galaxy have, what's his name?
Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah, Rocket, who's able to talk, and he's kind of like an alien creature.
Yeah.
So I could get that, but it was like he was a crocodile that could interact, but he can't actually talk. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just like...
It was just the campiness of comics, man.
It was just a little too much for me.
Yeah.
But outside of that stuff, I loved the play on time as well. I think that you brought up when we were talking before the show today about eternal time versus chronological time.
Yeah.
And how they play on that. And so maybe you can talk a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Oh man, yeah. The way that they depicted time was so biblical. That's the only way I could say it. So in the Bible, we have two types of time. We have chronos, which is chronological time. That's days, minutes, months, years. And then we have kairos, which is defined really by opportunity. And the Greek word actually was personified in a god. And the god had this little ponytail on the front of his face, and he ran around in gold shoes, and he carried around gold bags. And if you could catch kairos, if you would catch him, then wealth would be yours. That was the Greek personification of understanding. And so when it comes to the understanding of kairos, we think of it as like opportunity, that there are these moments, that pass, and that in heaven, kairos is kind of the way that it rules, not chronos. So
outside of time.
Outside of time, yeah. So it's why, God can see the cross of Jesus, and why he can give visions to John about the end of
time,
right? Is because he's above time.
He showed John the void.
That's it. Yeah. And so the way that they handled that in the series, where chronology is happening, people are living out, but the timekeepers can jump into any moment for the opportunity that they need in that space, right?
To fix something,
or whatever that looks like. And so
just to set it up for anybody who maybe hasn't seen it, again, spoiler alert, but basically there's this thing that they call the sacred timeline. And so it is making sure that everything happens and choices happen on the sacred timeline. And if anybody makes a choice out of free will to divert from that timeline, the timekeepers will go to that moment, arrest the divergent person, and then erase that fork of that timeline, so that everything stays on that sacred timeline moving forward.
Yeah. And so
there you go.
Yeah, it was really wild. One of the things I thought that I'd just ask you, in one of the episodes, they had this kind of twisted quote that was pretty interesting, where one of the main characters said, "I can't offer you salvation."
It was Mobius.
Mobius, yeah. "I can't offer you salvation, but maybe I can offer you something better."
Yeah.
It's kind of this like twisted play on faith. I just thought I'd ask you what you thought about that.
I know when he first said it, it was almost cringeworthy, and I was like, I don't know. I don't even know for sure what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Like, what's better than salvation? I still don't think that I fully understand what he's trying to say there, because even what he's offering him to be able to help with the missions and stuff like that, it's still kind of a form of salvation, right?
Absolutely.
So he, trying to get away from that determinism that is his destiny to be bad, is actually trying to work with his character to be good and to make good positive changes. Like, to me, I mean, that's like a salvation through works as opposed to a salvation through grace. But yeah, it was kind of cringeworthy when I heard it.
Yeah, what was so fascinating to me about it is I think that's like a prominent worldview that people have. Like there's this thing of salvation that God offers to us, right, through Jesus in that. But it's like we're looking for something more. We're looking for something better than what Jesus has to offer.
Like, that's great.
Yeah.
but what else you got?
Yeah, kind of thing. And I think that, with that being the prominent worldview and the way that it made it into this TV show for you and I in this like cringe mode, it was like, ugh, but we're both pastors.
Sure.
And I think that for most of the world, like when he said that, it's like there's something that resonates there that goes, that's actually what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Like I don't want to just be saved. I want above and beyond that. I want what else? Yeah. What else can you give me?
Yeah. Which is kind of interesting, when the disciples, this just came to my mind. After Jesus tells them they're going to die, like he's going to die, right? He's going to go to the cross and die. And then the very next scene is they're fighting over who's going to be the greatest.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, hey, salvation's not quite enough. Like we're looking for more. Hey, Jesus, can you just make the promise that I'll be sitting on your right hand? Like when we get up there, like I'll be your right hand guy,
That's right? Yeah, absolutely. Another interesting thing that happened with Loki is that you had these sacred timekeepers that it's these three like alien type beings that are supposedly making sure that the sacred timeline stays sacred.
Yeah.
Right? And in one of the episodes, towards, I don't know, I think it's like 4 or 5, they make it into the room where these guys are and they find out that they're just a front, like they're robots. They're not actually...
Yeah, androids.
Yeah, they're androids there's somebody else behind the curtain, Wizard of Oz style, actually controlling things. And I'm just thinking, I think that you described it as this veil is being removed. Is that the scene you were talking about?
Yeah, the darkness. What happens when the veil of darkness is removed? I think is kind of the bigger piece that oversees Loki, right? Is like Loki's eyes are being opened to the world in which he's a part of. Forever Loki thought that the world that he was in, that everything kind of revolved around him, and it's just ongoing. And then all of a sudden, with almost every episode, something's revealed to him where this veil of darkness is removed from him, and he sees a grander picture of what's going on, all the way up until the very end of the series, in that space. And in a way for us, that we look with this, well, maybe I'll say it this way, that I think that's why Revelation is so important in the scriptures, because it gives us a picture of the end, right? Of the veil being pulled back and us being able to see life for what it is in that space. And I thought that they depicted it so well in Loki that his eyes are constantly being opened, the veil of darkness is constantly being removed, and he's seeing what is beyond himself for the first time.
So I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. And so we all have our theology, right? Theology is our understanding and knowing of who God is and how he operates, right?
Yep.
And so there are different views, especially when it comes to time, theologically, about how God operates within both, I can't remember the Greek words that you just said, but both chronological time and
Kairos.
And eternal time.
And Kairos, yep.
Right? So they're both happening simultaneously. It's not like, for us anyway, they're both happening simultaneously. God is outside of that. So I can't speak for God, but for us,
it's kind of mind blowing when we start to think.
It really is.
What does it look like to be outside of time?
Yes,
we don't have a category for that.
Yes, and so the question is God the sacred timekeeper that is making sure that everything is going according to plan, or do we have choice? Do we have free will? Are we able to make choices on our own, and then God is still, kind of like a shepherd, bringing those things in line with where it needs to go?
Yes.
Or does God just know how it's going to end because he's outside of chronological time anyway?
Yeah.
And so when he prophesies about Jesus, he already knows how it's going to play out, and so it's really easy to tell any prophet that you want, hey, this is what's going to happen because I've already seen it.
Yeah.
Like he's not saying, I think this is what I know will happen. He's saying, I know it's going to happen because it's actually already happened for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, mind-blowing stuff. But there's different theologies around that I kind of wanted to break into a little bit, and these are words that people may or may not have heard before, but there's Calvinism, and then there's Arminianism, and then there's blends of all of those, right? And so they're just different theological viewpoints. And so I have some basic definitions here that I'm just going to read, just so that it can set the platform for us. So we have Calvinism is a Protestant theological system of John Calvin. John Calvin's the one who kind of started this thinking process, and his successors. It develops Luther's doctrine of justification by faith alone and emphasizes the grace of God and the doctrine of predestination. So Calvinist is someone that says God is making all the choices. He is the sacred timeline keeper. Right?
To a degree.
To a degree.
Yeah, I can explain.
We'll dive more into that in just a second. So then Arminians taught that Calvinist predestination and unconditional election made God the author of evil. Instead, Arminius insisted that God's election was an election of believers and therefore was conditioned on faith. Furthermore, God's exhaustive foreknowledge did not require a doctrine of determinism. That's a whole lot of stuff.
It is.
That feels like I can just imagine someone's listening to this like, what the did you just say?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So let's start with Calvinism. Maybe you can unravel that a little bit and help the layman understand what is it that I just read.
So it's two theological beliefs in that, and I think that a lot of it sets off, at least at the beginning, the understanding of free will. So from an Arminian standpoint, free will is libertarian. It's you have libertarian free will, which means that given a choice, that I have an equal opportunity to make choice A or choice B. That would be what that looks like. From a Calvinistic standpoint, Calvinism would say that you are always going to choose according to your nature. So, for example, if I gave you the choice of, I'll just ask you the question, what's your favorite ice cream to eat?
Today?
Yes.
Rocky Road.
Rocky Road ice cream. So if I was to present you with a peach ice cream and a Rocky Road ice cream, an Arminian view would say that you have an equal chance of choosing peach as you do Rocky Road. Calvinist would say, nope, you're going to choose according to your nature, and your nature is Rocky Road every time in that space. And so when it comes to the idea of libertarian free will, that's often
peach sucks.
Yeah, that's right. So that's where the two theologies begin to diverge in that space. Is how do you handle free will?
Like that we keep recycling these words.
Yes,
it's really fun. Continue.
Yeah. So where do you land on those in that space? Because ultimately the way that you land in that will determine which road you start to go down. So if you go down the Calvinistic road that says that I'm always going to choose according to my nature, then from a theological standpoint, you are evil. You are sinful, that your very nature is sinful. And the only way that you're ever going to be pulled out of that sin is not to be presented another choice, right? Are you going to choose good or sin in this space? You're always going to choose sin. You're always going to choose Rocky Road in that space. And so the only way to bring you out of that is to save you in a dramatic way where you see the light of God in such a way that you could not choose any other way. That would be where Calvinism goes. With Arminianism, they say, hey, no, you got an equal choice. You can choose peach or Rocky Road. You can choose good or bad in any day. And so when you see Jesus, when you see the salvation of God, that you have within your capacity not to choose to go against your nature and to actually choose God, and vice versa. In Arminianism, you also have the equal opportunity to go one day, I'm not really following you, God, anymore. I'm going to go my own way and choose sin again. So that would be the basic. That's it's real simplification of Calvinism and Arminianism.
Right. Yeah. It gets deeper and deeper the more you investigate. I know for me, when I think about Arminianism and I think about Calvinism, I feel like feelers tend to go towards Arminian, and thinkers tend to go towards Calvinism.
Yeah, maybe so.
Would you agree with that?
I would say that's probably, I
would say tendencies.
I'd say that's
not
100%,
but
I'd say that's a fair stereotype. Because Calvinism is really based on logic.
Yes.
And so, sometimes in the theological world you hear, I'm a 3-point Calvinism. Well, there's no that's illogical, right? Like
5-point tulip.
Yeah, the tulip, right? Yeah. So, when you look at that, the logic of it builds on itself in that space. And so when it comes to understanding Calvinism, it is really a logic space that's building on one another, where Arminianism, because of its freeness, is based on it's more all over the place, if you will.
Absolutely.
The interesting thing is, whether you're talking about Calvinism or Arminianism, both of them believe in total depravity. Both of them believe that people are inherently sinful in that space. Then how does salvation take place in your life? That's where it starts to differ. Can you choose to be something different than what you are, or will you always choose according to your nature?
Right. Yeah, I think to me it's when you get into scriptures that talk about predestination and that God chose, I think that's where Calvinism can come across as harsh, where God is actually deciding what your character is. And so he is deciding for you whether you are going to choose him or not. But really, it's not you choosing him, it's him choosing you.
Yeah.
And we as people just are kind of going along with whatever God predetermines for us to do. Where Arminians would say, God wants all to come and to know him, but then we actually have the choice to respond to that or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, I think that the way that you stated the Calvinist argument is the typical kind of negative side of Calvinism. I think that the way that like a Calvinist would speak to it would say that none of us are deserving of mercy. None of us are deserving of grace. Let me say it that way. That none of us are deserving of grace. And the greatest act of mercy is that he lifts some out, right? From an American point of view and a Western point of view, like if it's not fair, then it's not worth doing kind of thing. And so that's the way that we often kind of look at it from Calvinist standpoint as Western thinkers, is going, God's choosing a few to save a few. How unfair that is, when really fair is that all deserve death, which is what we're getting, and a few are chosen out to receive mercy in that space. I think and
that doesn't feel unfair.
It does. It totally feels unfair from a standpoint that we should all deserve. If fairness is getting what we all deserve, and this is the line that I use with my kids all the time. My kids always say, "It's not fair, Dad. This isn't fair. Theo's getting treated different than me, or whatever. This is not fair." And I just always tell them, and they'll recite this to you if you ask them. I'll say, "Well, good thing for you, fair ended in the Garden of Eden, because if we got what was fair, then we would all be dead."
Yeah.
Right. And so mercy is that we actually don't get what we deserve, and so that's where the Calvinist argument stands in that space, is that we're all deserving of death.
Sure.
A few of us, or more than a few, but particular people are chosen to see mercy.
Sure.
And I think
I think you can feel, though, right, from the feeler side, that feels like, well, yeah, we all deserve death, but how come God only chooses some to save?
Yeah, that's not fair.
Right. That doesn't, and so that's what,
right.
And so it feels
absolutely.
like, man, that's harsh, or that's mean, or what an angry God that would be, or what a not nice God that would be. Like, if God is loving, why would he create someone knowingly, I'm just creating you to go to hell?
Yeah.
Like that, you know what I mean? And I mean,
absolutely.
I'm playing the advocate here.
Yeah. And then I think on the Arminian side, right, when it comes to the Arminian side, the understanding of that is that God wants to see all come, right? John 3:16.
Yes.
For God so loved the world.
For God so loved the elect.
Yes, the world, right? In that space. And so the way that the Arminian tries to understand God loving the world is that then we all have to have the choice to be able to choose him or not. And again, I think that's Calvinism is approaching it from the same standpoint. What Calvinism is saying, going back to the way that we understand free will, is Calvinistic argument says that you do have the choice and you're always going to choose against God. The Arminian says you got a chance to choose God or not. The Calvinist says you're always going to choose against God, but God's going to give some the opportunity to pull them out regardless of that decision. Where the Arminian says you have an equal opportunity to choose God or not to choose God in that space.
I always said that
the interesting thing about Arminianism and Calvinism is that most Arminians become Calvinists at the end because everybody wants to believe in the perseverance of the saints. That once you're saved, you're always saved. That you don't lose your salvation. And so so most people who would go on the Arminian side still want to hold to the preservation of the saints because they don't want to lose their salvation.
The once saved, always saved.
Yeah, once saved, always saved.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the interesting thing. And for some of the Calvinists, that's why they go 3 points, is because they go, well, when it comes to the Arminian argument of God loves the whole world, everybody has an opportunity. Well, yes, and so.
And Peter, where he says he doesn't want anyone to perish.
Yeah.
And I think, oh man, you were saying something there that I wanted to talk back to. What were you saying just a second ago?
Well, I was talking about Calvinism and Arminianism.
Yes. That's so true. It had something to do with, so when it comes to losing your salvation,
yes.
I don't know about losing your salvation as much as, there's a scripture, this is just off the top of my head, I don't have it off reference, but basically the unforgivable sin.
In Hebrews chapter 6.
Yes, where it says, basically to the degree, I'm going to butcher this because I don't have it memorized, but basically to the degree of, if I reject God, like basically I say, God, I don't want you, like God's not going to force himself upon you. Right? So even if I know the truth, if I've been saved, and then I get to a place where I say, I don't want God. I don't like this God. I want nothing to do with him. I don't think that God drags you into eternity with him kicking and screaming.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess the argument to that would be, oh, well, then you were never really saved.
Yeah.
Could be the argument. But even if you had a genuine heart conversion. So I don't know. It all... Yeah. But that depends on what timeline you're on. So,
well, I think it looks at a lot of that you're speaking to there has to do with forgiveness. And I think that there is when we read Romans 1, this is so informative for us, that the statement is that God gave them over to their desires, right? That at the bottom of at the end of the day, the giving over to what one wants, right? God gave them over to that. And that's sin. God's giving them over to the sinful desires that they want in that space. They want him more than, or they want sin more than they want God. And so I think that's like really informative to us of how God doesn't bring anybody kicking and screaming into the kingdom.
Yeah.
That ultimately the desires of our heart, what we want, God allows us to have in that space. And that's scary in that space. And if you look at the beginning of Romans chapter 1, when it goes to the beginning of sin was refusing to honor God or give thanks to him. Like that's a huge, important verse for all of us to go, man, what does it look like to honor God? Because to not honor God is the beginning of sin, and then to fail to give him thanks.
Right.
And so many of my prayers begin with thanksgiving. I teach my kids to be thankful because it's like, if that's the beginning of a wayward spiral away from God, is when we fail to acknowledge the goodness that he resides in, whether you're an Arminian or a Calvinist.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that kind of bringing this to a bit of a close, we could talk about, there's so much we could talk about here, and the reality is that I love the analogy that you often give of kind of where we stand at Crossroads would be, open-handed and closed-fisted things, when it comes to our theology. I think one of my biggest fears is turning into a modern-day Pharisee, where the Pharisees were so certain that they knew everything and that they were right. And then Jesus goes, well, actually, know. And so I think sometimes, I'm thankful that we're saved by Jesus. We're saved by grace.
Yeah.
We're not saved by perfect theology, right? God's not waiting at the end with a pop quiz, to make sure that your theology is 100% right. However, there are aspects of it that we need to have right. Who is Jesus? And so I love that open-handed, closed-fisted analogy of the things that we say. If you don't believe Jesus is the Son of God and he is the way, the truth, and the life, then that's close-fisted. We're not.
Yeah.
That's not arguable.
Yeah, that's worth fighting over. I always think of like the fist. Like we're ready to fight over that stuff.
Yeah.
And what you said is there's just a few things that we're willing to hold on to in that space. Everything else is open-handed for us, including this conversation about Arminianism and Calvinism. And so I
we're
think
still believers who love one another and want the best and want to serve God and follow His,
so I'm just like thinking of there's 6 pastors that I have in my mind right now, and 2 of the pastors are very far on the right side of when it comes to Calvinism and their theology. 2 pastors are very far on the side of Arminianism. And then the 2 pastors I'm thinking of kind of float in the middle and haven't made a decision yet. Just kidding.
How come you're looking at me when you say that?
I don't know if you have or not.
Yeah.
No, you would be one in the middle.
Yeah.
And so,
who's my friend?
Who's your friend sitting in the middle? Oh, Chris, totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of thought. Well, I thought he could have been one or the other. But
So, so that's where, that all kinds of lives. And so, and we're all friends. We all serve in the same staff. We preach together, and in those moments where those issues may clash, there's a conversation that's had of how do we present this in a way that makes sense for people, so that they see the glory of Jesus and not the fight of theology.
I try to hold some of that stuff loosely too, because I think that God, who's the Father, right?
Yeah.
God the Father is looking at His children and going, "You guys are cute."
Yeah.
But you really got that wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I just think, thank goodness for God and His grace and His willingness to work with us, regardless of how we approach it, and so that's good. So thank you, Loki, for opening up all of this thought and conversation and time, and it's a beautiful thing. If you haven't seen it, you gotta figure out a way. It's 6 episodes. It ends really well. I won't spoil the ending, but the ending really leaves it for a fun opening for season 2. But lots of really, really good things. Matt, thank you so much for being willing to dive into all this stuff and
glad to be here.
The shenanigans.
The shenanigans
Love it.
begin.
That's right.